in all of our lives, we have at least one memory that makes us feel good. And when we think about it, it fills our heart with joy. And if we can do that and look with the eyes of our inner child at our lives as adults, so use those inner child eyes to look at your life as an adult, and things look different. They're more vibrant. I'm tingling as I'm saying it because I'm bringing that in for myself as well, which is really nice. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Everything glows and takes on a new aura, a new energy, and it doesn't matter whether you believe in fairies or not, or what you believe in, or whether you believe in nothing. It is a tangible, real thing if you can bring back that sense of innocence.
Welcome to the Gratitude Podcast on www.georgianbenta.com, where you'll hear a new story each week that will inspire more gratitude in your own life. Our mission is to inspire 100,000 people to discover how to feel gratitude and live a happy life through the amazing life stories of our successful guests and their actionable tips. And now, the host of our podcast, Georgian Benta.
Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a magical episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Today with us, we have Karen Kay, also known as the Fairy Lady. She's a former BBC News editor whose life changed when she started working with the fairies. She runs her own fairy magazine, fairy events, and festivals in the UK. She also creates fairy music with her partner. Karen says she is grateful to work with the fairies as they always bring upliftment, healing, and positivity into her life, and of course, a sprinkling of magic. I love this, and I'm really glad to have Karen Kay with us today because I really believe in magic and in the fact that life is just dull and boring without a little bit of magic, at least, right?
Yes, I totally agree. And first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to come onto your amazing show. Gratitude is a major part of my life, so I'm very honoured to be invited to speak with you today. Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So how did this all happen? How did you become the Fairy Lady?
Okay, well, the Fairy Lady came about actually from a young girl in a supermarket. And I'm not sure if you can see, but I always have little sparkles in my hair. And I was just doing my shopping and a little girl grabbed her mum and said, Mummy, look, it's the Fairy Lady. And I looked around looking for a fairy lady and then realised she was pointing at me. And I thought that was really sweet. And it happened a few times, actually. So I thought, I like that, the Fairy Lady, that's quite nice, and it explains what I'm about, really, how I operate in my daily life. So that's how I became the Fairy Lady.
I love it. I know that you've been passionate about fairies and angels and beings of this nature since you were a child. What experiences did you have when you were a child?
One of the earliest experiences that I can remember was I spent a lot of time with my grandmother in her garden. She loved roses, she loved flowers, and we used to spend a lot of time in the garden together. And I particularly remember the roses, and the petals would always fall, and they were natural roses, so they had beautiful fragrance, and just was a very uplifting and magical garden from my memory as a young girl. And I used to gather up all the rose petals and I used to make fairy perfume for the flower fairies, and I used to leave it as little offerings for them. And that was my first connection with the fairies, because I knew that they were guardians of the flowers, of nature, and that they helped everything to grow, much like we would have like a guardian angel or a spirit guide, and the plants and the flowers all have their own guardians, and they're the fairies, and often called the nature angels as well, but I call them fairies normally.
Beautiful. I think we as children have this view of the world as being magical, as being I think that gratitude has a lot to do with magic and with the feeling of awe. When you see something and you're like, wow, that's so amazing, like a child would be.
Yeah.
And when you appreciate things in this way. And the sad thing is that for most of us, we lose that part of ourselves. We lose that part that is so open to new things, to appreciating life and to seeing the magic in life. And I really admire you for continuing to be in touch with that part of yourself and to have the courage to to actually be the fairy lady, even though I'm sure that not all people find this really easy to grasp, or I don't know, you might have had experiences that weren't very easy for you
Yeah.
doing this, but seeing the shows that you're doing, the festivals, and how much magic you can find there, it's really wonderful, because it's really another world, and it helps us mature people uh, to remember those magical things. And yeah, and that's what I wanted to say. And if you have some stories about what I just said, I would really appreciate it if you would share with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, of course. I'd be happy to. Um, when I was a young girl, I was very open to magic. I had no, maybe we do have egos as children, but they're certainly not as developed as they are when we become adults. And I believed in magic. It wasn't even a belief, it was a knowing, it was real. It was all around. And I feel so thankful and so blessed that I've been able to retain that all through to my adult life now. And it makes me sad when I see or hear people and they say, oh, I used to believe in fairy tales, I used to believe in Santa Claus, all these things, and but not anymore, none of it's real. And it's almost like people become grey, as we're very colourful when we're children and we're young and we're open and we're vibrant, and then as we grow old, people become greyer and closed, and what was once open becomes tunnel vision. And I'm very blessed because that didn't happen to me. I've just stayed with it. And one of the things that I always say is you are never too old to believe in fairy tales. It's not age related. It's your being. It's what you feel. And there's no reason why we should stop being a certain way as we grow older in maturity in the human body. It's not a restriction. No matter what people think, we can do whatever we want, we can think whatever we want, and we can behave however we want. So there are really no restrictions. And I've always been a little bit of a rebel, really, sometimes naughty in school, but in a nice way, because I've always followed my heart and expressed that and expressed the magic and my belief in fairies, or my knowing of fairies. I don't like to say belief because that implies there's a doubt. There is no doubt in my mind or in my heart. I felt them when I was young, and that feeling has stayed with me right through to my adulthood life now.
This is wonderful. I think that it's up to us to believe that, I don't know, like you said, life is gray and everything is, I don't know, either black or white, and there are no colors and things of this nature. Or we can believe in things that are magical, and in the fact that there are things that we don't know about, that we don't know that they exist, that
Yeah.
we cannot see, and that doesn't mean that they are not there. And even beings that are helping us one way or another that we can't see. So how did the fairies help you in your life?
They help me by keeping me positive and open to the magic and the wonder of life and the beauty of life. And every time I look out the window, whatever the weather is, whether it's sunny, rainy, snowy, whatever it is, The fairies are also sometimes called elementals as well, and they work with the elements of nature. And I just feel so grateful to be able to experience this as a human being, to feel the rain on my face or the sun on my skin, and just to be really fully connected with this. And the fairies have really helped me enhance my experience as a human being. And they've also taught me to believe in magic, that we are manifestors. We can manifest, and it's only our minds that limit our manifestation abilities in this life. And the fairies, I think they like that. As soon as I open my heart to them, or I say I open the fairy door, and once you open the fairy door, it doesn't close very easily, if at all. And they just are always around me, influencing me in a really positive way. And I can feel their energy is a different vibration from how I would connect with a human. And they present themselves as sparkling lights or inspirations that have a different voice to my own. We all have our own internal dialogue. That's normal. We all have that. And we know the sound of our own voice, especially our own inner critic, which we all have, you know. But the fairies, when they talk to me, they talk on a telepathic level, usually. And it just comes in on a different vibration. And they inspire me with amazing ideas. And very often I will follow through with those ideas if it feels right in my heart, and if I believe it's for the highest good of everyone. So I would never follow an idea that would be detrimental to somebody. And usually it's all very light-hearted and it's celebratory. It's always about celebration, being happy, because, you know, let's be honest, the world has a lot of stuff going on and it's not all good. And so I feel that my role, self-given role maybe, is to create more magic in the world, for people to just dress up, have fun and celebrate life, because life is such a blessing. You know, it's such a gift, and a gift that is often taken for granted by a lot of people. They wake up, they do the same thing, they moan about this, they moan about that. I'm not saying I've never moaned. I have moaned and I do moan, but I like to count my blessings in life, and every day that I wake up is a blessing, and I'm so grateful for that.
This is wonderful. By the way, do you have some habits related to gratitude that you do in order to keep being grateful consistently?
Yeah, I do. And one of them, like I've just said, actually, is every day that I wake up, I give thanks. I thank you that I'm alive. Thank you that my eyes are open, that I can see. Thank you that I can breathe. Thank you that I can be creative in this body. Every day that I wake up, I am so grateful for this life, to be in this body at this time. I feel very blessed and very grateful for that. And that is something that I do every day. It's automatic. And all the experiences that happen to me in life, even if they're not so good, I am grateful for them, because there will be a lesson or a blessing in there somewhere. And it is challenging sometimes trying to find the blessing when things are going not so great. You know, you would prefer them to go this way and they go that way, and it's like, oh no, what's happening? But there is always a blessing in there somewhere, always. And that's what I do every day. I wake up and I am grateful for this life. Very simple.
Yeah, I love it. It's the things that we are able to do each and every day are more powerful than the big ideas that we are not able to keep with and to do constantly. So one of the things that have been recommended for us, for me, for my listeners, when it comes to gratitude, is going out in nature and connecting with nature.
Yeah.
And from a purely mental point of view, it doesn't make much sense. Like, why would going to nature make us grateful? And I'm just curious if the fairies have anything to do with this.
I think they have a lot to do with it, yes. Nature's, as I said earlier, fairies are connected to nature. They're one with nature. They help every single blade of grass, every flower, every plant, every tree. There is a fairy there as a guardian, as a guide, connected with that particular growing thing, whatever it is. Now, nature is vibrant. There's a lot of energy in nature. It grows. And also, it's primarily green, which is a very healing, uplifting and calming colour at the same time. And when we're outside in nature, we're absorbing the vibrations of those colours, the colours of nature, primarily green, but you've got all the flowers, all the beautiful variations that come through. And it just uplifts you automatically with you don't have to try to do anything. You're just there. You're just in it. You're just absorbing it, and it is uplifting, and it is such a blessing. So nature, for me especially, and working with the fairies is really, really important. And I'm always saying to people, get out in nature if you can. If you're living in a city, then get yourself a plant. Have a plant nearby, have a window box in your apartment. You know, you don't have to go out into the forest or the woods. I'm very blessed because I can do that. 5 minutes from where I live, I've got the sea in one direction, the woods in another direction, cliffs in another direction. I'm so blessed and very grateful for that as well. But you don't have to have that to connect with nature. As I said, you can connect with it even through a plant pot on your desk. It's very easy. And even if you can't do that, you can close your eyes and you can visualize being in nature. And it works just as well. Obviously, being there for real with your back against a tree, you can't beat that feeling, but you can bring that energy in by imagining it. Our imaginations are so powerful.
I love it. I love it. I think also, for instance, music or the sounds of nature. For instance, I recorded a short episode in which I had a recording of a bird that's here outside my window that has a beautiful, really beautiful song. And when I re-listen to it, so that I make sure that everything is okay, it just gave me such a beautiful feeling of peace, of gratefulness, of just being in the present moment. And it connected me with nature, and it was very interesting. And I'm hoping that it did the same for my listeners. But like you said, there are things like these that can help us find the connection with nature and enjoy it. But also, how can we ask the fairies to help us, or what do you think it's their role, or how do we relate as humans with them?
Well, the relationship between humanity and fairies in general has not been great from the fairies' point of view, because the humans, we've come in, we know best, we know everything, we chop down trees, we put concrete everywhere, we take away their natural environment. And it's very confusing to them because they know that that is healing for not only them, but for us. You know, to have this access to nature, to be connected with it, to be in it, is of the utmost importance for our health and our well-being. And this is a really important practical thing beyond magic, beyond fairies. It's a fact. It's a scientific fact. If you go out in nature, you will feel uplifted. So then if you take that back to the connection with fairies and humans, as I said, it's been fragmented, that connection, and it's very sad. And so it's a slow rebuilding. And there are more and more people now, including myself, who have this connection with the fairies. And so I'm really receptive to their whisperings, you know, intuitive whisperings, their telepathic callings to me. So it might be, hey, pick up that piece of litter that you've just walked past. Well, that's not my litter. We'll pick it up anyway, you know, take care of the environment. And it's these little things where you start to feel a sense of responsibility. It's not like, oh, that's a park over there, or that's a woods over there, that's not mine. You are part of that. And so you suddenly get this connection of wanting to care and preserve it. I feel very strongly about trees. Sometimes, yeah, they do have to be cut down, but they don't always have to be cut down. And for commercial reasons especially, it really upsets me. I had a family of birds living in my garden in a big tree, and there was a storm, and one of the neighbours got scared, so they cut down the tree and the birds went. And these birds have been coming with their family and having young for 15 years. And it really broke my heart to see that, but the young still come back and visit. I always put food out for the birds. I love the birds. And I believe that sometimes fairies take a ride on the back of birds, but you can't see them. They're like the buses for the fairies, or the trams. I don't know what transport you have there, but it's like public transport, but fairy transport. And it's symbiotic. They enjoy it. They have fun. So I think it's more about opening our hearts to the possibility. You don't have to believe in fairies. I'm not saying, it's not my mission to convert everybody to say, hey, you must believe in fairies, because that's not my place to do it. All I can do is, by example, live my life. I do have a connection with fairies. It brings so much joy into my life. And I want to share that with everyone, because why not? Why not do that? It feels good. It feels great. We're only here for a relatively short time. It goes quick. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I think, wow, how did I grow up so fast? Our lives as a human is very fleeting. So why not make it fun, make it magical, connect with the fairies or the angels or whatever you feel in your heart to do, and just make it a bit more joyful and enjoyable for people, because love is a much nicer feeling than hate, at the end of the day. So let's just love more and be open and receptive to the magic and the possibilities of life. And when you connect with the fairies, there's no limits. There really are no limits. The only limit is our own imagination.
That's so true. But how can we connect with magic? How can we find the magic in the simple things that we are experimenting each and every day, and we are doing each and every day? How can like a normal person that has never heard of fairies, or doesn't believe in these kinds of things that are related to magic, how can we find that magic in our life?
Okay, it's very simple, and it's initially about returning or trying to connect with that innocence of your inner child. If you can go back in your mind, this is a very simple way to do it. Most of us can remember an early childhood memory. Now, hopefully that's a positive memory. I'm aware that some people have negative memories from their childhood, and I'm sorry that some people experience that, but hopefully somewhere in all of our lives we have at least one memory that makes us feel good, and when we think about it, it fills our heart with joy. And if we can do that and look with the eyes of our inner child at our lives as adults, so use those inner child eyes to look at your life as an adult, and things look different. They're more vibrant. I'm tingling as I'm saying it, because I'm bringing that in for myself as well, which is really nice. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Everything glows and takes on a new aura, a new energy, and it doesn't matter whether you believe in fairies or not, or what you believe in, or whether you believe in nothing. It is a tangible, real thing. If you can bring back that sense of innocence and try and lose the restrictions of the mind, because it is, as I said earlier, our mind that restricts a lot of things, and just accept and be open. And you can say something simple if you think, well, hey, I want to, what's all this fairy business? I want to connect with the fairies. Okay, so you would be still, ideally in nature, but you can do it at home, in your meditation space, in the bath. You can do it anywhere. Fairies, if you are there, which I know you are, then please show your presence in my life in a positive way for the highest good of all. Help me to bring more joy into my life, more magic into my life, and more happiness into my own life and the lives of others. Thank you. It's very simple. And you can make up your own saying. you can, but that is a very simple way of how you can connect with the fairies.
I love it. And I totally resonate with it because it takes into consideration the positive aspects. It also takes into consideration other people. And I think that is really important. What I also love about your work is your art and the beautiful things that you are creating and you are bringing into this world. And the interesting part is that they somehow feel real, and they feel more real when you actually see them in a piece of art, and it actually gets you to that place, to that realm. And I believe that that is amazing, and I think that in general art does that. It takes you to another world, to a certain feeling, to a certain way of being, maybe. Can you tell us a little bit about the art that you're doing regarding fairies?
Yeah. I'm not an artist in that sense. I do paint, but I don't paint fairies myself. But I'm very blessed and grateful to be working with some of the world's leading fairy artists and some of the more upcoming artists as well. So again, part of my everyday life, I am blessed to be working with these amazing artists and to be continually exposed to this fairy art, which, as you say, it transports you. You can just look at a piece of art and you're there, you're in fairyland, you're in that space, you're in that environment, and it has a real effect. And I'm a great believer that the arts in general, the painting, music, poetry, books, all these forms of arts and all these expressions of art have the ability to transport you into a fairy realm, into a place where the fairies exist, because they do exist here on a parallel dimension to us. So they do live on the earth, but their energy is vibrating at a different rate. So that's why most people don't see them. Sometimes they will choose to show themselves to us. And that is a very great blessing. And by connecting to art and poetry and things like this, it makes you more receptive and open to the possibility of actually physically connecting with the fairies as well. And when you connect with a fairy physically, it feels like very fizzy, almost like I want to say champagne. I don't really drink champagne anymore, but that feeling of fizzy bubbles popping, a nice light energy. And that's the feeling that when you're connecting with the fairies of love and light, which are the fairies that I like to connect with, it's very tangible and a very real feeling. And I feel so blessed to be able to experience that quite regularly as well.
Exactly. And I think we actually found a great way of connecting with magic through art,
Yeah.
actually. And I was thinking, why is art so important for our lives, and why our art is so appreciated? For instance, when I'm thinking about music, I like Julio Iglesias, for instance, and I'm very appreciative of how able he is to connect with his feelings and with romance and with even so. For me, that I'm not able to do that all the time, and I'm working and I'm doing things maybe more with my mind, listening to that reconnects me to that part of myself. And in general, when you look at a painting or a different kind of piece of art, it has a similar experience, a similar feeling, and it's very important for us because the majority of us live lives that are more in our head rather than in our emotions and in our soul, let's say. And for instance, I know that you have created music as well, right?
Yeah. I've been creating music I've been writing since I think I could pick up a pen, poetry and songs, and I've been creating music. I was in my first band at the age of 15, so it's been a very long time. And I'm blessed because songs seem to I get a whole song in my head with the melody and the music. And more recently, over the last few years, I've been very connected to a poet called Walter de la Mare, who is one of my ancestors, close ancestors. And he wrote lots of fairy poetry. And more recently, I was looking at some of his poetry, and the melodies would just come with this. And he would paint pictures with his words, if that makes sense. And he would write about music, and you could hear the music in the words, even though it was just written as a poem. And so I moved that forward by putting the melody to his words and then incorporating it with some of my own words and inspiration. So we've actually, myself and my partner, have just produced an album very much inspired by those words and our own. And music, like art, has the ability to transport you into a different space. And because fairies is my thing, our music can transport you into that fairy wonder, into that fairy realm. So when you listen to it, you feel like you're there. And fairyland is only a thought away. It's as far away as you want it to be and as close as you want it to be. And when you're transported there on a note, on a word, on a melody, or on a visual of art or something, it really is a very powerful experience that everyone can experience. And sometimes people are experiencing it without even really knowing that they're experiencing that. It's just happening. It's a natural occurrence. And yeah, it's pretty special. And again, I feel very blessed. I can sing in tune, and I have these melodies, and it's a gift that I'm really grateful for. And I love sharing it with people, and I love that people enjoy hearing it as well. So that's another thing that I'm very grateful for in my life. Music.
Definitely. I can totally relate. And I was thinking about our longing, our need to connect with these kinds of worlds. And it's very interesting. So I've studied astrology for some years, and I know that the Pisces energy has a lot to do with connecting with these worlds. And people sometimes choose to do that in ways that are not healthy for them, like doing drugs, abusing alcohol, and all kinds of other addictions that make them feel that they are not connected with this world, or they are connected with another world, but that are not healthy for us and that are not good for us. And I think art and the magic of the fairies is a much better alternative for people that have that longing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point, because when I was younger, I would drink a little bit, I would experiment with different things, but nothing compares to the natural high of life itself with just nothing. I don't even headache tablets. I don't like to take anything really. I like the pure connection with life itself. Now, I know that people have situations in their lives where they feel that that's all they've got. They turn to various substances or alcohol or food or whatever it is to help them get through. But there is a way of getting through with just that pure connection to life. The high of life is incomparable to anything else, any other high that is chemically induced or alcohol induced. The high of life in a natural, simple way is almost indescribable and even more magical, because when you take things, they kind of suppress your natural ability to connect with life itself. It's kind of a lot of people, I think, take things to suppress their emotions because they're feeling too emotional and they can't cope, so they take something. And sometimes these are prescribed medicines, you know, from the medical doctors and things like this, and they're given these drugs and they're suppressing a part of themselves, and they're needed. I'm not saying it's wrong for them to take them, but I do know that when you have that pure, direct, exposed connection to life, it is the biggest high that you will ever get. And that's it. It's just magic. It's magical.
I love it. I think that, and I know actually from several studies that I've read that, for instance, the practice of gratitude actually has the same kind and even a better effect on us than antidepressants, for instance.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an important point. But we are nearing the end of our time together, and I want to ask you, I don't know if this will be the last question, but certainly one of the last. Who and what are you grateful for in your life right now?
Ooh, big question, really. Oh, wow. I'm grateful for life itself. For being alive is the biggest gratitude that I have. It's so miraculous, isn't it? To be, what are the chances that we're in a body experiencing this life? I mean, that is the biggest gift, that whether you believe in God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, the source, something or some energy has made it so that we are here in a body experiencing this life. And that for me is the biggest gratitude that I could ever have. On a more human level, I'm very grateful for my partner, Michael, who helps me to set up interviews like this with all the technology. And he records my meditations, and my voice when I sing. So I'm very grateful for him. I'm grateful for all of my friends, for everybody that is in my life for whatever reason. They're all bringing a lesson, a gift, whether it's one that I would think is not so good or really good. It doesn't matter. I'm grateful for them all and for all the lessons and for all the blessings. I really am grateful to be able to experience everything as a human and all the lessons that come. Bring it on. I love it.
This is really wonderful, and different and deeper perspective on life and on how we can appreciate it. So where can our audience find you? Where can our audience see your work?
I have quite a big presence on social media, and I write for various magazines. I produce my own fairy magazine, but the best place to go is my website, because all the links will be on there for everything that I'm doing, because I also give talks and workshops, and I'm also writing a book as well, which I'm very excited about. So my website is karenkay.co.uk. So it's karenkay.co.uk. Lots of K's in there. karenkay.co.uk.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing your view on life, on magic, on fairies. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been really nice talking to you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to our weekly podcast. Help us reach our goal of inspiring 100,000 people by sharing this podcast with your loved ones, with your Facebook friends. And if you loved this episode, please write a review on iTunes.